that night I knew he was dying.
Streaming to check. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, as you know, this event is being streamed around the world. And it's being streamed to every TV in Oakland, so they can't watch anything else at Central. So, on behalf of the Hall of Fame Committee and North Catholic, we're thrilled to have you join us for what will be a very special celebration. This is our 22nd year of the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Since 1999, North Catholic has recognized the outstanding accomplishments of a select group of individuals who spend their life giving back to the community and enriching the lives of others. So a number of people here tonight are wearing Hall of Fame pins, Bob. So if you're wearing a Hall of Fame pin, or if you're a Hall of Famer, please stand up. All right, now you can sit down, thank you. Also, Joe Wilson mentioned the fantastic job that Amber Morrison does putting this together. She does an incredible amount of work behind the scenes, and I wasn't happy with the applause that you gave her earlier. Please give a rousing round of applause for Amber. Thank you very much. All right, tonight we have 5 inductees, 3 of whom are with us tonight. These individuals represent what it means to be a leader through excellence, integrity, performance, and faith, all while staying true to Marianist values. It's an honor to be selected to the North Catholic High School Trojan Hall of Fame. The people being honored this year were chosen for their contributions and accomplishments to the school and to the community. The selection process is pretty rigorous. The Hall of Fame committee is made up of 15 people who meet several times throughout the year. There are several nominees received each year, and the committee studies each nomination very carefully. We select those individuals who stand out and meet the outlined criteria. Every nomination is reviewed at least twice. And when I say that, I mean people who aren't selected in that year, they'll be looked at the next year and the next year. So those nominations stay active. Before the final vote, each member speaks for a nominee they believe worthy of induction. After the votes are tallied, sometimes a second and a third ballot is needed. It's a task that requires time and dedication. Once the committee selects these inductees, the names are sent to the Diocese of Pittsburgh for approval. The names of the committee members are in your program. There's detailed bios in there, which are very, very well done by Amber. At this time, and we already stood for the Hall of Fame guys, so I'm not going to ask them to stand again. So we're going to begin. The first guy we're going to talk about is Dr. Mike McCarthy. Our first inductee, sadly, isn't with us tonight. When Dr. Michael McCarthy found out he was being inducted into the North Catholic Hall of Fame, he expressed his gratitude, saying he was both humbled and honored. Fighting an illness, Mike said he was going to do everything he could to be here tonight. Unfortunately, just 2 weeks ago, Mike passed away. He lived an incredible life and had a huge impact on everyone he met. To share more about Mike and to accept the award on his behalf, please help me welcome his friend Bob Miner.
Yeah, it's a real shame about Mike. In fact, about 5 days before he passed, he called me and said, "Bob, I'm a little nervous about coming into the airport." We made arrangements to pick him up and take him to the hotel. And he really wanted to be here very bad. Excuse me. As Medio said, he went to the Lord on September 22nd. And if you'd bear with me a minute, I'd just like to say a small prayer. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, please put your arms around Mike McCarthy, and tell him how much his family, his friends love him and miss him. May Mike rest in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Mike grew up in Aspinwall, a little borough down by Shaler and Etna. And he went to St. Scholastica High School. And from there, Mike came to North Catholic as a freshman and started playing football. Now, he was definitely undersized. He was about 6 feet, but weighed, I think, soaking wet about 140 pounds. He was our center, and I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he probably blocked my guys also. Who said yeah? Mike received a partial scholarship to St. Vincent College up in Latrobe, and where he excelled again in football and received his bachelor's degree in biology. From there, Mike wanted to be a doctor. He still lived on the East Coast, went to the University of Pittsburgh, and got his doctorate degree in MD. And he wanted to specialize in urology. After his medical degree, Mike was introduced to, well, actually, before his medical degree, he was introduced to his wife, Alice, who went to Seton Hill. Now, isn't that great? Right across the road on Route 30. But anyhow, Mike went to Pitt, got his medical degree, and stayed on the East Coast. They were married in 1965. Mike was transferred then from Pennsylvania to Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego, California, and that's where he completed his residency in urology. He was then assigned to Camp Pendleton in California, the Naval Hospital. Mike's final position in the Navy was, Mike's final position was in Balboa Naval Hospital with the rank of captain. Mike then took a position as a professor at University of California in San Diego, where he was dedicated urologist, teacher, and committed to being radiology. I never had a chance to ask him about that, but Mike is survived by the love of his wife, Alice. They had 5 children: Sean, Tara, Mallory, Michael, and Brennan, and 10 grandchildren. This year, Mike and Alice were married for 57 years. Mike also, believe it or not, was a doctor on submarines. Now, God bless him, I couldn't handle that myself. But anyhow, Mike was a man of God and had a very deep faith and attended Mass daily for many years. Mike was strongly believed in his Catholic faith and education, and he made sure all 5 of his children went to Catholic high schools and Catholic universities. Mike was very involved in volunteering about anything his church in California needed for repair, and especially he was proud of creating a soup kitchen there in California. Mike was named Alumni of Distinction and inducted in the St. Vincent Athletic Hall of Fame. Mike wrote a book called Bolt in the Ring. Now that came from a football practice activity we had at North Catholic when our great coach Rip Shear was here. One guy would get in the middle and 10 guys would surround him, and the idea was to try to get out of there. We were hurt pretty often, to tell you the truth. Mike wrote that book. He mentioned the bull in the ring, but he also mentioned his life at North Catholic. He mentioned his life at St. Vincent's, Pitt, being as a urologist, being in the Navy, and mainly about his family, children and grandchildren. Mike was also a football coach at several of the naval bases where he was stationed. Mike took inspiration from a quote from our friend and great North Catholic coach, Rip Shear. If you ever knew Rip, you'd have to love him. But here's what Rip wrote: "Play the game of life with the same intensity you play the game in football, and all will be well." Alice and I talked, his wife talked, we talked this week several times, and she asked me to please thank North Catholic. North Catholic already sent Alice these beautiful candle containers and a banner in honor of Mike McCarthy, MD. But she asked me to thank Amber, the staff, and also the students at North Catholic apparently put that together. She asked me to please do that. And that's in the banner. It's beautiful. She sent me a photograph of it, and it was in the memory of Mike. So I am honored to accept the Hall of Fame award for Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I'll take pictures. The Carmen takes better pictures than I do.
Okay. Carmen. Geez. second inductee is Joseph Nowak. Joe graduated from North Catholic in 1949 and went on to have a successful career working in the steel industry. Described as an exceptionally prayerful man, Joe has used his talents and gifts to help others. Those fortunate enough to know Joe describe him as kind, loving, and wise, a man deep in his faith and devoted to his family. Whether you've known him for a lifetime or a few minutes, you're immediately struck by his gentle spirit. To tell us more about Joe, we welcome his dear friend, Father Joseph McCaffrey.
Well, it's truly an honor to be here tonight and be chosen to introduce Joe Nowak to you. There is a beautiful write-up in the program about him, but I'd like to tell you some things you might not know. Joe is truly a man for all seasons. He's a man of deep faith, of commitment to God, to family, and to country as he served in the Air Force. But I love the story of how Joe dated his wife for almost 70 years, Rita, and they were both at Nativity Parish. And he was only allowed in those days to date her one day a week. But Joe, being the smart, intelligent, wise man that he is, noticed that she went on Tuesday nights to the Miraculous Medal Novena. And so he went to the Miraculous Medal Novena. And you young people should take advantage of this and notice that Joe went and prayed, and through their prayer, she fell madly in love with him, because after the novena he would walk her home and go the long way and stop and get some ice cream. So he worked in 2 dates a week instead of 1. But she proved to be a true soulmate. And through them, Joe was certainly very successful in business, but the real business was his family, and he has his cherished children here tonight, and his grandchildren and great-grandchildren who couldn't be here, but I'm sure are watching. And you really are what makes Joe's life and Rita's together so precious and valuable. And that's really what we're honoring here tonight. As the pastor of St. John and Paul years ago when we were building the church, Joe was a man of tremendous value to us. He served not only as chairperson of the Finance Council under Cardinal DiNardo, and then Father Al and myself, and he also served for us on our Land Acquisition Committee and Building Committee. And believe it or not, in August, I got a phone call from Cardinal Dan DiNardo, and he calls every once in a while. We were chatting, and we chide each other, and I told him, I said, well, with all due respect, Your Eminence, I think you blew it. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the Holy Father appointed you to that group that was supposed to clear up the Vatican's financial difficulties. I said, and after your experience and mine with Joe Nowak, why didn't you get Joe on that committee? I'm sure if you would have, the Pope would have made you Secretary of State. And he started laughing, and he said, well, you got me there. I think you're right, but I think you're wrong in that the Pope would have made Joe Secretary of State. But his love for family, country, and certainly our faith is what makes him certainly a very worthy person to be honored in the Hall of Fame for North Catholic. But I notice in your badge it's NC, and my new parish is in Newcastle. And so I'm going to look at it both ways. So, Joe Nowak.
Thank you, Father Mac, dear friend for many years. I don't know if people know that Father Mac has been the chaplain for the FBI from tri-state area for many years. I know just a couple weeks ago you received a plaque for 30 years of service to the FBI. That goes back through 2001 when you took the families of the survivors of Flight 93 in Somerset. You weren't with our church then, but you did the job with the survivors and took them from the Motel Somerset up to Shanksville and stayed with them for a couple days. So that was very nice of you. When Joe Morrison called me last May and mentioned I was on the Hall of Fame, elected to the Hall of Fame, I was in complete shock. I had no idea this was going to happen. And I put the phone down and thought for a few minutes, and I called my daughter and Sharon, and I told her about it. And Andrea was in some contact with a member of the committee, so she knew a little bit about it that was going on. So, Kathy, you're very kind to be on the committee and to be my advocate, and I appreciate it. What an honor it is to be selected among the 15,000 men and women who are graduates. As I mentioned, there's two friends of mine here in the same graduating class. They're on the Hall of Fame. George Bowers is here. George, where you at? Right there. And, Frank Mandel did not make it this evening, but he's also on the Hall of Fame in the class of 49. I'd like to mention another group of North Catholic graduates whose names will be on the front lawn on November 11th with a small flag. These are North Catholic graduates who gave their life for this country. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. One of these was a gentleman who I went to grade school with for 8 years. I went to North Catholic for 4 years, played CYO basketball at the parish level. His name was Charles Weiser. The Korean War, as many people know about, it's forgotten war. But the war ended after 3 years, ended in 1953 in July. There's 35,000 men and women who died in that war, 3 years in Korea. And one of them was a good friend of mine, Charles Weiser. He was 22 years old. He died 2 weeks before the war ended. So may their souls rest in peace, amen. Weep was his name, Brian, you're right, Weep. That was his nickname. Everybody had nicknames back then, but his name was Weep. To all of you, I'm deeply honored to be included with the other 4 graduates of North Catholic to be elected to the 2022 Hall of Fame in this great Catholic high school. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Wow. Okay, next up is Jack Bashofsky. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight. We are hopeful that Jack is watching from Florida as we are live streaming the ceremony. So Jack, if you're out there, how you doing? How's it going? Okay, where's Amber? Is this true? It's his birthday today as well?
It is his birthday.
All right, so that's crazy. On 3, everybody look at the cameras and just say 1, 2, 3, happy birthday, Jack. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Jack! Perhaps he's watching. I hope. So Jack graduated from North Catholic in 1955. He was a standout football star in high school and in college, and went on to have one of the most successful careers in the NFL as a talent scout. Despite his success and the people he met in his career, Jack always remained humble, and his love for North Catholic runs deep. Jack is kind, thoughtful, and truly cares about the school, the students, and the sports teams. He has stayed in touch with many of his classmates and friends, Jack always looked out for North Catholic graduates, helping so many with whom he came in contact. Jack is sad he could not make it tonight, and we are sorry he couldn't be here, especially since we found out that it is his birthday. To speak more about Jack and accept the award on his behalf, please help me welcome Jack's dear friend, class of 75, my punter, and Hall of Famer, Kevin Cooper.
Thank you, media. I was the punter. Then tell them what my average was, please.
I mean, come on, 34, we'll round it out.
I first would like to congratulate Joe Wilson, Amber, and Mike for what they're doing with this great school. The school is going in the right direction. It has been since we've moved up here. And fortunately, I think we're going to be honoring a lot more Hall of Famers as this school continues to grow in its great existence. I know if Jack was here, he would want to also congratulate the other honorees. He knew Mike McCarthy very well. Mike was a couple years younger. Always liked Mike. They mentioned Coach Shear, both of them, who happened to be my uncle and was a great man. But I know we send our condolences to the McCarthy family and the congratulations to Joe, Fred, and Ken as well. I met Jack in 1984 when I was a young scout with the Blesto organization. And Jack and his brother Joe, who's also a Hall of Famer, we were together at Penn State. And we were eating at Toff Streets, which is the little golf and hotel place up there. And I was a very young scout. And I just said to the both of them, I said, could you just give me one bit of advice as I enter into this profession? And they both looked at me. They didn't hesitate. They said, look, we have a pile of reports on our desk back in the hotel room about this high. And he said, you're never, ever going to be able to fill or finish those reports. And 38 years later, I can tell Jack I never did. Yes. Jack was also a great racquetball player. And I was his unfortunate partner too many times because Jack would just beat you routinely and enjoy it. He'd make a great shot, just a serve. And I'd be like diving for it, missing it, and he'd just always kind of laugh and say, oh, were you ready for that? I'm sorry, I didn't know. Another time, a guy from another team kind of challenged. He said, hey, I know a guy in this from Tampa Bay. He'd really like to play you. And Jack very definitely just said, just tell him to bring his trophy. But Jack did ask me to read his comments. Again, unfortunately, he suffered a broken leg about 6 weeks ago, or he would have been here with us for sure. My love for North Catholic began the evening that my father took me and my brother Joe to the North versus Central game at South Stadium in 1950, and that love remains until this day. This was the first organized football game that I had ever seen. And it's difficult to put into words how exciting and how wonderful the atmosphere was, and how much enthusiasm the student body portrayed. I dearly wanted to be part of this exciting tradition. The day I was accepted into North was such a joyous one for me. My dream had come true. I would be part of an outstanding academic institution with a dominant athletic program. While attending North, I was taught and nurtured by so many outstanding teachers that I will not mention for fear of omitting anyone. I thank all of them for having the patience to deal with me and laying the foundation for my future organizational skills. You could always hear, three special individuals in particular showed me the way to become a man. Brother Ed Spang showed me discipline. Organizational skills, you could always hear him yelling across the field, don't throw that helmet. He didn't miss a thing. Coach Don Graham, my 9F homeroom and PE instructor and freshman football coach, taught me how to be a vigorous and all-out but fair competitor. His catchphrase was, save it for the field. The third person, Coach Rip Shear, was my father figure and mentor through my lifetime. Rip was instrumental in getting me a football scholarship to the University of Tennessee giving me guidance, and helping me make intelligent decisions throughout my lifetime. Coach Shear was my second father. We stayed in touch up until his passing, and I miss him dearly. I can again congratulate the other 2022 inductees and wish them well. I knew Mike McCarthy personally. I would also like to thank Amber for her time and efforts in organizing this wonderful affair, for being a wonderful ambassador for North Catholic High School. Again, Jack and I spent roughly 38 years running into each other on the road at different times. And Jack, every time we would talk or meet, of course we'd talk about what was going on in the football world, but we always talked about growing up on the north side, and what we always talked about, how lucky we were to have attended this special school. So Jack, congratulations, wish you could be here, but really proud to call you a friend and very truly honored to do this for you. Thanks, Jack. Thank you, everybody.
Just finding my place, kids. Thanks, Kev. Our next inductee is Fred Galovich. It can be said that Fred is one of the greatest football players to have graduated from North Catholic in the history of North Catholic. That's high praise there, my friend. Yeah. Fred played fullback for the Trojan football team and was known for dominating the turf. He received numerous awards while a student at North, and as impressive as that may sound, it doesn't compare to the wonderful traits Fred possesses. Those close to Fred describe him as kind, humble, and always willing to lend a hand. To speak more about Fred, please help me welcome his good friend, once again, Bob Minert.
Oh, Fred, what an opportunity this is. You know, Fred is married to Marlene. They have 4 children, 2 stepchildren, and grandfather and grandmother of 7. Children are Debbie, Fred Jr., Craig, Carolee, and the stepchildren are Carrie and Chris. Fred was the owner of Galovich Financial Services. I believe it was in Ingomar for 42 years. Fred started playing football, another North Sider, St. Cyril's, Brighton Road, played there, and then came to North Catholic for 4 years, and like you said, he was an outstanding player. From North Catholic, Fred went to Dayton for a year, played football. From there he went to Penn State, played football, and then that's where he got hurt. He finished his degree at Point Park College. Fred was named an All-American player in his senior year at North Catholic through the National Sports Organization. In fact, if you ever go up to the trophy case, you'll see a set of bronze shoes, Fred's bronze shoes that they gave him, and also a news article about an All-American running back. More important than football, Fred's a man of God with a very deep faith. And I see Fred in that action all the time. He's been a Eucharistic minister for several years at our church, my church, St. Ferdinand's. He taught CCD there, and he's a daily Mass attendee, like I mentioned to you about Mike. So nice. Fred's been dedicated to children and youth for many years. He was responsible for fundraising and construction of a children's playground with emphasis on children with special needs. Fred was also involved in fundraising for Children's Hospital, for the Make-A-Wish program, the Religious Works Council, and organizing summer functions for children. Fred also coached North Allegheny youth football for several years. He coached McCandless girls softball and soccer. Another matter that Fred's very proud of is his work as the director of the Beach Committee in Vermilion, Ohio. That's where Fred and Marlene spend a lot of their time in the summertime. And Fred worked with the Department of Natural Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers to design and implement a plan to control beach erosion. Oh, I almost forgot. Fred was in the Army, active duty 2 years, then reserves for 4 years. Fred, I didn't write it down. Was that World War I or World War II? Well, I'm sorry. Sorry, Fred. We went to Camp Corbley every year for football. That's up in Mahaffey, PA, near Punxsutawney. And we were there 2 weeks. And we were told by the coaches, don't go near the creek. Coach Shear, Coach Graham, Coach Sturm, don't go near the creek, it's going to hurt your muscles, stay out of the water. We later found, Fred and I, that they were keeping their beer down there, and that's why we couldn't go to the creek. Camp Corbley was great. I named Fred a couple different things up at Camp Corbley. I called him Gallopin' Freddie Gallovich. And then at 16, he had a mustache. I couldn't believe it. So I called him the Walrus. And then this player will be unnamed as he could be arrested for hazing today. But he did cut half of Fred's mustache off because we were seniors and Fred was a junior. If you attend St. Ferdinand's Mass on Sunday at 10 o'clock, Fred's there, Eucharistic minister, and I can't believe he did this to me, but he walks around the back of the church after Mass and says, hey, if you guys ever see the back of Bob Miner, his bare back, my cleat marks are there. Because if he would have blocked a little better, I'd have another 1,000 yards. So I'm honored to introduce Fred Gallovich to you, the recipient of all praise.
Thank you, Bobby. Hey, Bob, I was over at the Cranberry Municipal Building the other day, and I think your picture's still over there, crossing the Delaware with George Washington. Is that still you?
I thought you were going to say most wanted.
And always remember, I'll always be younger than you.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Bob, for introducing me. I want to thank the nominating committee for selecting me. I want to thank my family and my wife, Marlene, and my classmates back there for attending this and accepting this honor with me. I appreciate that. You know, you see me standing here, but what you don't see is all of the individuals behind me who advised me, encouraged me, and taught me through my lifetime. If it wasn't for them, I may not be here today. Let me give you 2 examples. 1953, I'm that old, Bobby. 1953, I was in the 8th grade at St. Cyril's. A gentleman named Jack Stack was a grade school football coach. Jack came to my mother and asked her for permission to allow me to play football. And I got to know my mother. She thought about it for a while. She said, no, I don't think so. It's a rough sport and I don't want him to get hurt. Well, there was a rumor going around at the time that I was a mama's boy, but we'll talk about that one later. So I played for St. Cyril's. The next year I enrolled at North Catholic, and I tried out for the freshman football team. I was cut the first day. Jack called me that evening and asked me how I did. I said, sorry, coach, I was cut, and I'm going to forget about football. I'm not going to play anymore. And the following day, I went into class, and Coach Don Graham, who was a freshman coach at the time, came up to me and said, we're going to give you another chance. Well, what I found out was Jack had called Don that previous night and said, hey, give us another chance. I think it deserves it. Well, because of that one phone call, I would never have had the privilege of playing for Coach Graham and Coach Rip Shear. Two people that I admire and respect the utmost. These two gentlemen taught me the values of life. Coach Shear had a unique way of bringing people down very, very quickly. And Bob, you would remember this on the football field. I remember 2 times when I had a good game the night before and I was feeling full of myself, and Rip came to me and said, "Hey buddy, don't put yourself too high on that pedestal because it's a long way down." The other one was when I was playing, I think we were playing Scott or somebody like that. I was messing up, and he said, from the sideline, said, "Galovich, quit reading your news clippings and play damn football." So this is the type of guy Rip Shear was. He also taught me 2 things. Number one, he said to me, be proud of what you do, but be humble in accepting any comments, which I remember to this day. He also told me, be a leader, but always remember that it takes a team to succeed. I'll never forget those words. And I thank them for bringing me up and guiding me through my life. It was 1973. I was a financial assistant for a corporation in Pittsburgh. And I was feeling fairly comfortable with myself. During that period of time, we had a recession I'll never forget. I was called into my boss's office on a Friday afternoon, and he said, because of the recession and the slowdown, we're going to have to let you go. I was devastated. I was humbled. I was embarrassed. I didn't know where to turn. We had 4 children, a home mortgage, and a car payment. Well, after 4 months of unemployment and living on food stamps and welfare, I didn't know where to turn. I panicked. But at that same time, I was a member of the North Hills JCs, and I volunteered for a program to discuss drug abuse with teenagers and their parents. After that meeting, a gentleman came up to me and asked me what I did for a living. And I said, well, right now, not much, I'm retired. I'm sorry, not retired. I'm unemployed. He said, did you ever think about becoming a financial advisor? And I said, no, I never thought about it. But sounds interesting, what does it pay? He said, well, it doesn't pay anything, but it's an opportunity for you to start your own business. Well, I told him I'd think about it. A couple of days later, I called him back, and I said, fine, I would like to pursue it. But I asked him to, if he knew a gentleman or anyone that would mentor me along for the process of studying for the tests. He gave me a name of a gentleman in Houston, Texas, named John. I called John and asked him if he would help me. John said, fine, he'll do anything he can. John and I worked for 2 months, and through his help, I took the test and passed. The following day, I called John to thank him, and I found out that he had passed away. He was mentoring me from his hospital bed, dying of terminal cancer. I'll never forget that. But because of John and Jim, I would have never, ever had the opportunity to start a business, a financial planning business that lasted 42 years. And I thank them for that. I also want to thank my parents, my mother and a father who taught me the values of life, hard work, persistence, and never quitting. I remember my dad, who worked 2 jobs and only was able to see me play 1 high school game. But every morning when I got up, he was sitting at the kitchen table, excuse me, reading the newspaper of my game the night before. But I always also remember my mother, who saw every game, but when I was on the field, closed her eyes and prayed the rosary. That's the honest to God. I don't know how many rosaries she prayed, but maybe that's why everything turned out well. I don't know. Anyway, so I thank them. I thank them for being my parents, and I thank God for the blessings He bestowed upon me, because without His help, I would not be standing here today. But thank you very, very much for this honor, and I appreciate it, and I will take this honor with me, and very humbly, thank you very much.
One more thing, we got a special. Okay, we killed it somehow. Okay, there it goes. All right, go.
Fred, this is a special greeting from somebody in Key Biscayne, Florida. Dick Treacy. Oh my God. He said to give you a hug.
There it is.
And he said to tell you that Rip Shear once told him that Rip loved you more than he loved Dick.
Congratulations, Fred. Listen, I've got a friend, Bob Miner, who can't seem to get his finances together. He can't retire, so he might need your help. I mean, perhaps with some better financial planning, he can actually retire and enjoy life. Our last inductee is Ken Sinagra. Ken devoted his life to Catholic education. Ken graduated from North Catholic in 1973 and loved his time at North so much that he came back here to teach in the 80s. His career would eventually take him to other area Catholic high schools. An advocate of Catholic education, Ken is well liked by his colleagues and by the students he taught and mentored. Friends say he is an accepting, open, understanding, and supportive. To share more about Ken, please give a warm welcome to his son, Nicholas.
Hi. Can you hear me? All right, good. Yeah. First of all, thank you to everybody here at North. Thank you to Joe Wilson and Amber and all the administration here at North for this evening. This is a very special evening for all my dad and our family. As I was preparing for this evening, I wanted to focus on something, about my dad. And, obviously he spent 38 years as a Catholic educator. And I was trying to narrow it down. I thought, well, should I talk about his years as a teacher at North? Should I talk about his 14 years as an administrator at Central? Or should I talk about his 16 years as principal at Bishop Academy? And what I really want to focus on is the thousands and thousands of students that he influenced and inspired during that 38-year career. Now, I was privileged enough to work with him for 9 years. When I say privilege, I mean privilege. And there's a table of Bishop candidate people over there, and I think they would agree with me. But I had the opportunity to see his influence firsthand. And The word that comes to mind is leadership. His leadership was apparent the second that you walked into the building. He respected the faculty, staff, administration, students, and parents. He was strict but fair. He was very knowledgeable about every aspect of that building. And a lot of that was from the hours and hours of work, preparation, and research that he did at home half hours that many people didn't see. He expected a lot from everyone, but he also expected a lot from himself. He ultimately, everything that he did was to educate young men and women. And as our fellow manner at Canada, as he truly did, his father good kids to be great. I have a quick story, it's sort of funny, quick story. So my dad and I go to a lot of baseball games and hockey games. And I swear, 90% of the time, we see somebody that knows him from either North, Central, or Canada. It's almost unbelievable how many people we see in live games that know him. So about a year ago, we were at a Penguin game. It was an intermission, and a guy came up to him. This guy was so excited to see him. And he was, you know, in fact, he was a kid in a candy store. He was super excited to see him. And he was a graduate from Central, I believe, in either 98 or 99. He was talking to my dad and said how much he respected him and how appreciative he was of him and how thankful that my dad straightened him out and put him on the right track. And they talked for the entire 18-minute intermission. And then 10 minutes into the period. So eventually my dad said to him, "Well, where were you sitting? Who were you here with tonight?" The guy said, "Oh," he's like, "I'm actually on a date, and I should probably get back to that date." I'm here for a half hour. But that just shows you the type of respect that he earned from all his students over the years. Now that he's retired, he still is influencing, inspiring young people, but now as Papa to Lucas, Caroline, and Dominic. So on behalf of my mom, my brothers, and the families, my aunt, my uncles who are here, and the Bishop Jonathan Taylor Everett, we would like to congratulate my dad, Ken Sinatra.
Thank you, Nick, for that kind introduction. Spoken just as we wrote it. As educators, we tend to be long-winded, so I'll try to keep it brief. First of all, my thanks to Joe and to Amber for putting on the dinner and the program tonight. Very well done. Joe worked with me for a while at Bishop Gannon, part-time as our business manager, and when I had heard that he was named as president, I was thrilled. They could not have picked, I think, a better person. So ingrained and into North Catholic. We even had to tell him at times not to wear his North Catholic Church to Bishop Cannon. When he came over, he was upsetting the faculty. But Joe is North Catholic through and through, and I'm very pleased to see that somebody of such quality and really somebody who knows so much about the school and the history of the school is in that position. I wish him well. I know that he'll do a great job as we move forward with the school. I offer my sincere congratulations to my fellow inductees in the Hall of Fame class of 2022. Your successes and accomplishments are quite inspiring, especially as I glance through and brief through the program. And my deep condolences to the McCarthy family. I had a chance to read a couple of days ago the obituary, and he absolutely led an inspiring life of professionalism, service, faith, and caring. And so may his family be consoled in their loss. May the Lord bless him. If you surveyed or would have surveyed my class of 73 and asked them who would be worthy to be inducted into this Hall of Fame, my name would not come up. In fact, probably half the class might even say, "Who's that?" I was not an outstanding student. I was not an athlete. I was not an overachieving extrovert. I was not one of the burnouts. I was blended in with the woodwork, like many students from our class. But I think looking back in hindsight, that gave me a sort of a perspective of what the average student probably feels like going through high school. It helped to shape my career as an educator, because it helped me to see that type of student and perhaps ways in which he or she could be directed. As I get older, my memory is not as it was. It's kind of clouded. Not that I ever really had a great memory to begin with. But on this occasion tonight, I can't help but conjure up a few of those clouded memories back 50 years ago. And I always felt that I should have written a book about my career and the many, many people that I've encountered, students and parents and coaches. And I sort of regret not having ever done that. What is clear from my high school days and my career is that the African proverb is so true that it takes a village to raise a child. Likewise, it takes a village to educate a child. I'm deeply thankful and appreciative and indebted to my village people. These are the people that I remember from my days, both as student, as teacher, from my days as administrator at Central and administrator at Bishop Cannon. It would take much more time than we have here tonight to reminisce about the many individuals who have impacted my career and me as a person. But please just allow me to list, again, at the risk, as somebody said earlier, at the risk of missing people, I'll take that risk, who I might offend. But these are the teachers from North Catholic who I have mostly a vague recollection of, who had some influence, as small or as great as that might have been, on my life and in my career. I encourage you to, because I'm sure that many of you know these names, but I encourage you to think of how they may have influenced you. Lou Basic. By the way, I'm going to probably stop at some of these because I do have some small stories to tell about them. I want to say something about Lou Basic. Lou was the first teacher I ever met at North. Again, I think I had him for a reading class. I was one of those students that didn't get the foreign language right away, so they put me in a reading class. Well, Lou loved to, as many of you know, give the etymology of words. You know, if the word that you used was over 3 syllables, he's going to spit out what it means, where it came from, and give you some story about it. He also liked to tell you how your name should be pronounced. And so the very first day of class, he went through the roster and came to me, and I said, Kenneth Sinagra? And he said, Sinagra? He said, Sinagra. It's Italian, Sinagra. That's how it's pronounced. All right, look, Mr. Basic. After high school, that's how I started to pronounce it, Sinagra. So no more the Sinagra, which was, again, probably prevalent up until that time throughout our family. Brother Leonard Kuntz, who taught me algebra, I was definitely afraid of Brother Leonard. Brother Bill, who taught me biology, and I remember sitting in biology class and just, it sat, the biology class and lab sat right above the cafeteria, so I had lunch right after biology, and the smell of the French fry grease and the mixed with the aroma of vinegar from the Heinz plant and the formaldehyde that we oftentimes went to lunch and just couldn't eat at that point. Brother Gensler, who taught me technical drawing, Brother Richard Deneen, Father Hoper, George Spries, who was able to write the kids he was given detention on the smallest 1-inch square of paper that he kept tucked in his pocket. Mrs. Morrissey, who taught me chemistry. One day, I liked chemistry, but I wasn't very good at it. One day, she came up to me after class, she said, I think that you ought to think about being a metallurgist. Okay, what's a metallurgist? I had no idea, but obviously I didn't pick that career. But she was a very good lady who was very encouraging and guiding to her students. Dave Lyons, Sam Lima, Ron Hughes, George Osterman, Walt Lease. Walt, I think, had a contest with Brother Leonard and who could have the most chalk on their suit by the end of the day. Walt carried around a cup of coffee that was open, and the chalk mixed with the spilt coffee all over his suit by the end of the day stood out. And Walt, I believe, if I recall, smoked. And he smoked in class, and the chalk board as his ashtray during the day. He was a character. Joe Mell, and Joe taught my dad. Ray DeLillo, Donna Wright, Kathy Hickey, Don Graham, Leonard Jankowski, Jim Zarin, Jim DeTrude, and then when I taught at North Catholic, Ed Scheid, Marion Aaron, Steve Heiner, Frank Naderhoff, Bob Marcos, Steve Fajelkovich, Vic Borio, Beth Young, Father Bill Berenger, Brother Jack Dempsey, Brother Ray, who was the vice principal, I recall, now this was the 70s, and I had come in and I was wearing love beads. And I can't remember if it was with a tie or without a tie, but I had the love beads, and I was in my locker, and Brother Ray came up, and he grabbed the love beads and ripped them off my neck, and they went all over the floor. And students were trying to get around, and he said to me, "Now pick them up." And so I had to pick them up, as students were walking over top of me. And Brother Ray was actually a great guy. After he left the Marianist and became the business manager, it was like night and day. He was like two different people. But actually, having been a disciplinarian, I understand the job, and so he did what he had to do. Carmen and Jane Militello, Walt Quinn, Joe Dunn, Steve and Kathy Morris, Jerry and Julie Petrosini, Paul Stutz, George Lischak, Tom Stroman, Brett Thomas, Bill Polonis, and I'm sure the list could go on and on. These were people who influenced me again as a student and also as a new teacher. My first day of class, teaching, I have been looking for a job. My wife and I were about to be engaged, and I went and I interviewed with Dr. Katrude. Was surprised I got the job that day. Now, mind you, it was February, middle of the school year. I was hired as a religion teacher. I had been in the seminary, so I was teaching religion. I was teaching it to all seniors. Middle of the senior year. No textbook. First time teaching, never had any education background. My colleagues warned me that the class was bad. And that was an understatement. I don't think from February to June, one bit of education occurred in those classes. But I made up my mind. And I was too naive to ask why the former teacher had left. And I quickly found out. But again, I quickly made up my mind that if I was to be rehired, that I would change my ways and change their ways, and that we would be able to coexist in class. And so I was rehired and went on to teach sacraments and teach marriage in the senior year. When I look back over my career in the 3 different high schools, diocesan high schools, it's clear to me that the value of education, Catholic education, lies in our ability to mesh the qualities of great academics, and that means great teachers, a culture of family and community, firm discipline, but fair discipline, all enveloped in the foundation of a Christian Catholic faith that calls all of us to serve others. Schools, we need to be where students feel welcome, cared for, respected, and nurtured, where educators and leaders can clearly see from the time that they're freshmen to the time that they graduate the development and the growth that occurs. Where there are schools that really are not ashamed to declare and witness the ideals of Christianity. If not, then they have no business to be in existence. Catholic schools do that. That is the foundation of why we exist. And I am sure that with the Marianist background that began so long ago, that even without Marianists, that has continued today. I know that the founder had in his writings, Blessed William Chaminade, had talked about the importance of emphasis on community and family and being inclusive in the students that they were teaching. Mary as the model of what it means to be a true disciple. You know, my other schools that I worked at, Central Catholic and Bishop Canterman High School, each had their own model. The Christian Brothers had the De La Salle brothers, the LaSallian brothers, and Bishop Canterman had adopted the Ignatian Jesuit way of St. Ignatius of Loyola. And they're all the same. They really are. The mission, goal, are the same. The way of getting there is just perhaps a little bit different in what they emphasize. Each school uses a different charism, but the end goal in the mission to be Christ for others, and whatever the students choose to do in their life is what we guide them toward. And again, I must say, to do that as an administrator and as a teacher, oftentimes is a monumental task, but could never be done without the village that is behind them. And I've been blessed over the many years with my career to have a village of people who made my job easier. They were inspirational in helping me to fulfill our school mission in whichever school I was working. Many have gone to their heavenly reward, but I am grateful to all of them. I want to thank my dear friends and colleagues who are here tonight, Marianne Reinhardt and Ed Repa. Marianne and Ed and I go back 30 plus years. When we worked for the diocese, we went to a training in drug and alcohol prevention and training the trainers, training the leaders. I was fortunate when I was at Bishop Canavan to hire Marianne as our vice principal and our enrollment director. Ed Rep I worked with at Central Catholic, and again later at Bishop Canavan was fortunate to bring him on to help with our guidance department. Rita Junker, some of you may know Rita. Rita's a longtime educator at Bishop Canavan. She did the communications courses in our English department. She worked at Seton LaSalle, but most importantly, she gave almost her entire career to the speech and debate program. She's probably back there critiquing my speech at this point. But she worked for us at Bishop Canavan as speech and debate, and has been here, I'm sure, many, many times. Colette Stan Wilson. Stan was a longtime math educator at Bishop Canavan and a coach, longtime coach, and his wife Colette was a religion teacher and a guidance counselor when I had coerced her to come back to Bishop Canavan. And I thank them. And also Tisha and Walt Garcia. Tisha was my, again, longtime administrative assistant at Bishop Canavan. Don't know what I would have done without her assistance. Thank you to my brothers and brothers-in-law, sister-in-law. I just want to introduce them because they are also North grads. Bob, class of 70. Joyce, my sister, class of 79, and her husband, Tom Welsh, class of 77. And their two children went to North. I forget what years they were, but Justin and Michael. Kevin, 1985. I had the pleasure, I'm not sure he would say it was a pleasure, but I had the pleasure of teaching Kevin when I was a teacher at North. We taught the sacraments class, and actually Kevin was a bit of a computer geek, even way back then, and he wrote a program for my class. I used to pair the students up, boys and girls, and throughout the class they would then go through and have different experiences. Kevin wrote a computer program, compatibility program, that we used in the class. He had you stuck with that, you could be wealthy at this point. And Stephen, class of 89. Stephen I taught during his freshman year, but I didn't have Stephen for class. But I had the pleasure of having him in the building also. My father was a North grad class of 47. And again, it was a goal of his and my mother's that whatever they needed to do, they would get most of us through North Catholic, and many cousins and uncles who are grads. Thank you to my loving and very successful children, Ken Jr. And his wife Christy. Ken's a graduate of Central Catholic High School. My son Nick. Nick is a graduate, as I told you, of Bishop Canavan High School. And my son Eric and his wife Allie, taking care of their children back, my grandchildren. Eric is a graduate of Bishop Canavan High School. And lastly, to my beautiful I'll get through it. My beautiful wife, Rosalie, 41 years married. I usually don't get this emotional, but obviously spouses of educators have to sacrifice a lot, and that's what she did for all those years, for 41 years, sacrificed many, many hours and weeks, all the events, all the complaints from her husband about the diocese, all of that. She tolerated it, and I love her and appreciate it. Thank you. And my 3 beautiful grandsons, most of whom are behaving tonight. Thank you. This is a true honor, and I thank you, and I thank my village. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the ceremony. Okay. A couple things. One, the inductees who are here, please come up front. Amber wants to do one more picture with you guys, so if you could come up as soon as I'm done talking, just come up here in front and Amber will get one last picture of you guys. The Hall of Fame Committee is always looking for people. Go to the North Catholic website if you have somebody in mind and nominate them. Because, as Joe Wilson pointed out before, we have an incredible alumni base. And there are incredible people out there who need to be recognized and honored. So, thank you all for coming. Please drive safe. Hope to see you next year with a bunch of new and amazing inductees. Thank you.
You have to show me Joe's picture on the